families where the proper combination of loving your kids and having discipline is present. And so they're both necessary. If you just think that abundant love is going to be enough and you haven't got boundaries, then you're going to find it's not going to work too well. Sixthly, we should never belittle our children or ridicule them or bully them. You know, the big dad thing, who kind of authority figure or lacking his own sense of worth, brought up with ridicule himself. What does he do? He tends to be the big man who puts down the little man. And I don't think any of us love ridicule or shame. You ever been ridiculed or shamed? Awful feeling inside. Doesn't matter whether you're a child or an adult. But I cringe when I hear dads putting down their kids, their boys, in front of other boys. I just cringe because I feel for that kid, because what that kid is feeling inside is a huge amount of rejection and put down by his dad. And if you've got a tendency as a dad to belittle your kids or use shame as a form of discipline, I just would say to you, change your behaviour fast, because what happens is that if you do that to your kids will grow up not respecting you or trusting you. And they'll walk away from you at some stage because you're just rejecting them all the time. You attempt to discipline them. So discipline, big issue, very important for you as a parent and grandparents as you seek to train and teach your children the way in which they are to go. Second area that Proverbs deal with is the development of our character. Proverbs 6:20 is a great verse. It says, "My son, keep your father's commands, and do not forsake your mother's teaching. Bind them upon your heart forever. Fasten them around your neck. When you walk, they will guide you. When you sleep, they will watch over you. When you awake, they will speak to you. For these commands are a lamp. This teaching is a light. And the corrections of discipline are the way to life." They shape us. There's a little saying that says, sow a thought and you reap an act. Sow an act and you reap a habit. Sow a habit and you reap a character. Sow a character and you reap a destiny. And you know, it's interesting in the Bible, it never tells us to be spiritual. It actually tells us that we need to train ourselves to be godly people. 1 Timothy 4:7 it says, "Train yourself to be godly." And what it's really saying there is this, is that you need to work on your character. If you've got issues with your anger and it explodes on others and you dump your anger on others inappropriately, you need to work on that. If you react whenever you sense rejection from somebody and you react in an inappropriate way because you've just got this rejection inside of you, you need to work on that and deal with it. Whole lots of stuff in our lives that we need to work on and deal with, you know, because sometimes it's the emotional kind of stuff inside of us that we were invited this morning to bring to God. You know, it's all that actually kind of puts a huge block on our lives in terms of our spiritual maturity and our spiritual growth. And we need to deal with those things. In fact, that's how God deals with us. Let me read to you in Hebrews 12 when it talks about God as a father who actually loves us too much to allow us to walk in ways that are not appropriate. He loves us too much so that he will teach and he will train us and help us to walk in his ways. Listen to what it says. "Our parents disciplined us for a little while as they thought best. But God disciplined us for our good, that we may share in his holiness. No discipline seems pleasant at the time, but painful. Later on, however, if it produces a harvest of righteousness and peace for those who have been trained by it." Now, what's the harvest of righteousness? It's your character. God's been working on you. Are you working with Him? So that He keeps on working on you. He loves you and He wants to teach you and train you in the way that He wants you to walk and live. And if there are things in your life that are inappropriate or still emotional kind of baggage there, then God will actually cause circumstances. He sometimes uses circumstances for us to wake up to the fact that He wants to teach us and train us and show us the way to go in terms of our life, so that we might share in His holiness, share in His in righteousness, the good character, as it were. Now, Ian Grant. Let me just finish by talking about practical ways that we can use with our children to build good character into our children. Ian Grant wrote this. He said, recent research indicates that one of the best ways to develop character in our children is to read them stories that involve role models of the heroes and the heroines in life. Good Bible stories. That's why I encourage you to read good Bible stories to your children each night, because they teach your children how to behave, some of the moral kind of lessons in the Bible stories, or they teach your children about having faith in God in difficult situations. And just reading the stories and talking about those stories, the kids begin to pick up the values that you hold as important. Just reading little fairy tales, to the kids. Chicken Licken and the Three Little Pigs. I didn't read Three Little Pigs for a long time until I read it to my grandson the other day. Three Little Pigs. It's got a great moral to the story. The pig who built a house of bricks, good, solid work ethic, building something that's going to last, And all those little stories are great moral stories, and what you're doing is you're teaching your children moral principles and values that are important for life. Secondly, we not only need to teach these values to our children, we also need to help them to understand why those values are important. Because you'll start finding your kids, when they get to 8 and 9 year old, they start to ask you, why? Why do I have to hold this value? Why do I believe this? And you need, as a parent, to help them to talk through the whys, so that those values that are your values, they start owning those values for themselves. Because if it's just your values, they can easily walk away from them. They've got to start owning those values for themselves. In a recent survey in America, it showed that when children have a firm understanding of their values, and they've owned their values that you've taught them, that makes a huge difference to their behaviour. And it shows this, that when young people lack a firm understanding of their values, they are 3 times more likely to cheat in an exam, twice as likely to steal, 3 times more likely to use illegal drugs, twice as likely to be angry with life, and 6 times more likely to attempt suicide. And so, helping your children to own your values is an important process for you as an adult. And thirdly, if your kids love and respect you as a parent, you become the most powerful teaching tool in your family. Kids, they look up to you as a dad or a mum. They want to become like you. You're their hero or heroine. But if what you say is different than what you actually live, if your behaviour is inconsistent with what you say, you will disillusion your kids. You will undermine everything that you say. And your kids will end up not respecting you and walk away from what you stand for, your faith or your values. They just want to reject it because they see inconsistency in your life. But modelling is powerful. In some families it's like you don't have to talk a lot about boundaries or discipline, because your kids they love you, they respect you, They want to follow you. They want to be like you, and they'll follow. They'll model everything. They'll copy everything.